What's up, guys, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Neo Vintage Podcast. I'm Jabril, and I'm with
Steve. Hope everyone's doing well.
And for you guys who have never seen the show before, we're just two guys that like to talk over the biggest stories in games, and we always like to start with what we've been playing. So, Steve, what have you been playing?
So I've been putting my time into two games, obviously. So Tony Hawk, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 HD, and then Avengers, Marvel's Avengers by Square Enix, and all those companies that worked on that, because it's a huge amount of people. So
Crystal Dynamics
and tons of people. Everyone from that family has been working on that game. So to split up, Tony Hawk, I cannot talk enough praise. I'm sure everyone's already heard about the game's being received really well, selling really well. It's fantastic. It's such a throwback to those simpler days. Obviously, we live in a crazy time, but the soundtrack's there, the gameplay's there. Seeing those levels remastered is fantastic. The feel is finally right, because the feel was not right in Tony Hawk 5, Pro Skater 5. It's not been there, and then even prior to that, like the Undergrounds and American Wasteland and all those other ones, it was always like trying to borderline be too realistic and stuff. So it's to get back to your roots in such a pretty package is fantastic. Split screen multiplayer's there, so that's great. It's the point that like everyone wants to play with me, and they're like, "Do you have Tony Hawk?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got it, obviously." So that's fantastic. I haven't done any creative skate or anything, or a park and all that kind of stuff. I'm just getting my challenges, getting those tapes, spelling skate, getting those points, breaking trash cans and boxes. So it's there. So obviously, shout outs to Vicarious Visions. They've done a fantastic job, and I'm almost certain can call it they're probably going to do 3 and 4 next, because why would you not? If it's selling well, it's being received well, and you have this new engine to work with, I'm assuming 3 and 4 is next, so that'd be fantastic to see. Avengers, oh man, I'm very mixed on, and so I know you've also been playing this, so you may have a little bit more to say. There'd be moments where I'm having a lot of fun, and then it's cool to see these characters. I'm not one of those people who are jaded that they don't look like the MCU. Obviously, they weren't supposed to look like the MCU. Super impressed with the way some of these voice actors are filling in these roles. So I'm loving the way Troy Baker as Bruce Banner is something in my head I would have never put together, but my goodness, I'm so glad to be able to experience this. Laura Bailey's doing better than I expected as Black Widow. Nolan North, I'm always a mixed bag with him. I'm not really feeling him as Tony Stark and stuff like that. Gameplay wise, it's solid at times, and then other times it really shows that this game's been struggling, and I'm not sure why. I am sure that at some point there will be a story release on why this game suffers the way it does, even though it's getting through it. But man, those load times are long, and if I have to wait in another elevator, like Mass Effect time, it's just, oh, you're in a canyon. Oh, but don't worry, here's a building with 7 elevators, so you can fight a couple enemies, and the story is interesting there. I'm not touching any of that multiplayer stuff, because I'll be honest, it's, to me, in my opinion, it's really bad, and seeing online, a lot of people agree, but it is fun. I am enjoying the campaign, the story. These characters are fitting really well, especially if you have some back history. You and I are big comic fans, so we actually have a lot of all these little Easter eggs and stuff they're giving us. It just really fits well. So all my time's pretty much been going to those two, Tony Hawk, Avengers. What have you been playing?
Yeah, I mean, very similar to you.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'll just pick up for Avengers since you've been talking about it. Again, I'm mixed about it too, and obviously we're going to have a dedicated spoiler cast so we can go into depth about this game, but kind of shallow looking at it. I think it's a very fun game, I would say, but the technical issues of this game, I don't think I've ever seen a major release on this scale perform this poorly.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen small examples of it, kind of like Days Gone and stuff like that. But man, this game is having some real significant technical issues. And playing this game immediately, and I mentioned this to my girlfriend while I was playing it, I immediately was brought back to, and I don't know if you remember this, late 2012, early 2013, right before the PS4 came out. We were having some the late gen PS3 games, and some of those games just barely ran on the PS3 because it was obviously a transitionary state. Some of those games were probably meant to be on PS4, but they wanted to get them early on PS3, or or they tried to do both and hit both SKUs, and it's just very barely running on it. And that's kind of what my experience with Avengers is this is very obviously a game that would probably run best on PS5, but they put it onto PS4 because they probably are like, this has been delayed long enough, we need to get this out. And this thing is just chugging along. And yeah, the load screens are not great, and then on top of that, once I get into the game, it's chugging like crazy. And then there's one thing for the gameplay to chug, but then the cutscenes chug sometimes. And then I was dying laughing because when I finished the campaign and the credits roll, the credits were like chugging. Like the words. The words were like skipping frames.
Wow, really?
Yeah. And I'm like, wow, this game... And the thing is, like, I'm of two minds. Either this game is just too much for the PS4 to handle, because I understand sometimes, especially when you get into those really demanding, you got 4 people on your team, and then you can have anywhere up to like 10 active enemies moving at any time in an open environment. That could be quite demanding. I understand that. At the same time, I'm not sure if this is a over demanding issue or an under optimized issue. I'm not sure. We kind of bumped to the issue when you have too many hands in the pot, where too many people touching it, too much of a scale, too big publisher, a lot of money going into it, that sometimes it just doesn't hit the quality that it needs to hit sometimes. So I can't tell if like this was just an under optimized game, and it could, with the right work and diligence, maybe they could get it running smoother, or this is just a game that is not meant to run on this generation of hardware. That's a possibility too, because again, we saw a couple PS3 games, and again, a lot of people, when they think of the end of the PS3 generation, they're like, oh yeah, Last of Us. I'm like, I'm telling you, Last of Us was like an outlier. Some of those games at the end of that generation were like killing the PS3 and Xbox 360.
No, absolutely. It's almost like that now if you think back to Last of Us 2.
Yeah, and it's the very end of the generation. Yeah, where Last of Us 2, Ghost of Tsushima, those run amazingly. But man, I'm telling you, some of these newer games that are a little bit more demanding, I'm kind of spooked to see Cyberpunk, because I'm like, oh. But I trust CD Projekt Red a lot more than I trust Crystal Dynamics. No offense at all. They're a very talented team over there, but it's kind of a different thing at this point. So yeah, Avengers, I like it a lot. I beat it. We'll get deeper into it on the spoiler cast. There's a lot to like there. But I would like to try this game again, maybe in a year and a half, on the next-gen hardware, to see if these problems have been rectified since then. And especially with the online component and the fact that there's going to be so many character drops and DLC, there's lots of reasons to return to it. So I'm kind of putting like a little bookmark on this one. I'm like, I'll probably get back to this on a little dead period for next year, because I'm sure things are going to ease up around like maybe late summer next year. And I'm like, okay, I'll pop this one in. So I'll play that then. Tony Hawk, phenomenal front to back. Now that I've spent a lot more time with it, it's kind of surprised me, because I feel like there's a good possibility that this might inch closer or break into my top 5, which I did not anticipate at all.
Wow, okay.
But in terms of just having fun with a game, there's few games I've had this much fun with this year, honestly. And you could say that it's a rather simple game. It's not a crazy intricate game, but there's a beauty to that simplicity, and I feel like when you don't bite off more than you could chew, you can really excel at what you do choose to do. And that's what I feel like they did here. They took 2 games. They didn't inject a whole bunch of nonsense into it. They just, nice $40 price tag, cleaned them up, kept all the great things we love about that, a couple quality of life improvements here and there, tacked on the multiplayer. It's fun to play other people's created parks, and yeah, it's a simple game, but they accomplished everything they sought out to do at a really high level. And I can't say that about many games this year, where when people are just trying to do these astronomically huge games with DLC and a whole bunch of moving parts and season passes, they just one single package where you get what you get, and it's very old-fashioned the way that, hey, you want to play this thing, just unlock it, put in the work. And I can really appreciate that. So Tony Hawk killed it. And then the last game that I played was Even the Ocean. Spoke about it on the news show. I gave the whole synopsis there, so if you guys want a breakdown on it, you could go check that out. I posted that Saturday. And yeah, that's a really fun game. It kind of reminds me, the deeper I go into, kind of like a different approach to the game Celeste. I don't know if you remember that game, but that was another narrative platformer that kind of used platforming as a way to further its story. And I think it was a way more literal approach to it in Celeste, where literally the challenge of the game is her challenge of getting through some of the emotional and mental things she was going through at the point. Where on this hand, this is more of a navigational thing, but it's a very story heavy game. And again, the thing that I think is the coolest about this is, yes, this is an indie game by not a massive team, but there's so many accessibility things that they played around with that I haven't seen from many games before, especially on this scale, where literally you can play this game however you want. So if you want to do nothing but platforming and you want it to be a platforming game, it could be that. If you want this to damn near be pretty much a visual novel, you can play it like that. You could play the hybrid version, and then there is another version that you can unlock afterwards that I haven't dived into, but there's a fourth version on that. But yeah, no, this game is really, really solid, and picked it up for like $15 on the Switch eStore. So that was something fun to play because, again, I'm kind of just trying to burn time until Mario comes out. So I've been playing like Modern Warfare 2 Remastered and Eve of the Ocean.
Not bad. No, sounds good. That sounds good. And I'm gonna check that game out. Obviously, when I saw you put it on the news, I was like, I'll check that out because my Switch has been not barren, but you know,
dusty.
I've been waiting for that that Mario trilogy. You know, Origami King wasn't really my thing, and I've dabble into my Animal Crossing every once in a while, but it's starting to get a little samey, stale. I'm not like trying to get into the shops a lot, so I might check that out.
You're about to get a lot of play out of it when that Mario hits.
Oh, that's a different story. That's a different story. Can't wait. This week, right? It's pretty quickly.
Yeah, the 18th, so Friday.
18th, so Friday. Exciting times. All right, so getting into the news stories, we have some good ones this week. It was a powerful week. It's funny because we've had some like lull weeks and stuff like that, but we got some big stories today. So first, Cyberpunk 2077. We were just talking about it. The multiplayer microtransactions. So after the release of Cyberpunk 2077, apparently this November, I don't believe it, but a separate multiplayer project will be launching, and it seems to have a microtransaction system. CD Projekt Red president and joint CEO Adam Kaczynski said in an earnings report that the developers looking for ways to get people to spend money and be happy about it in the multiplayer, which caused quite an uproar, but they have reiterated that the microtransactions will only be featured in the multiplayer mode and not in the single player mode. Now, that's not to confuse that there is going to probably be paid DLC in the same vein that The Witcher had Blood and Wine and kind of stuff like that. Yeah. I don't see why people were so confused on this. Obviously, Cyberpunk is still launching for the low price of $60, and I say that in the aspect of think of how much game you got in The Witcher. They could have charged easily way more. So getting Cyberpunk to the extent you're getting it for $60, that's fine. On top of that, you're getting this free multiplayer. Well, apparently, as of right now, it's free. I don't remember them mentioning it would be paid, but a free multiplayer system incorporated to Cyberpunk. As long as the microtransactions aren't like a pay-to-win system, I'm okay with this. I completely understand. I don't mind them getting the same, people always bring up Fortnite. Fortnite is not a pay-to-win. You can get it for cosmetics, and that's it. It doesn't make you better at the game, depending on, what banana skin you want on. Obviously, Cyberpunk's going to go that same, route probably, I'm assuming. I just don't, again, we haven't seen it, so I think people are jumping the gun. What was your reaction to this? I was surprised on how, I don't even know what to say, how jaded people were about this news.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, and I don't mean this to be funny, but honestly, I think the term microtransactions is a trigger word for a lot of gamers now.
Yeah.
Where they've just been wrong so many times in the past that the moment they hear that a microtransaction is going to be in a multiplayer game that they're actually really excited about, they immediately go back to Battlefront 2. That's immediately where they're transported. So yeah, it just seemed like people being a little overzealous. Again, this is locked to the multiplayer. The single player, you're going to get the full package. It's going to be completely fine. And again, just because the presence of microtransactions doesn't mean that you're literally paying for combat buffs to be able to beat other players. A new skin, a color-swapped version of your character is a microtransaction. It's just extra things you can buy. And there's nothing forcing you to buy it. Again, the way I look at this is, if anything, this is going to look a lot more like the way Rockstar does things. Whereas, you can buy a fancy car, a fancy plane, your character can get all these tattoos. Like, you could pay for all these things if you want. Who knows? And they didn't ever say that the microtransactions will be the only way to get some of these items. So there's a lot of assumptions being made. Who knows? It could be like a GTA game where it's like, you could grind them out and play a lot of hours into the game and accrue enough in-game currency to be able to buy things, or you could just go straight there and buy it yourself, kind of like V-Bucks in Fortnite. So, yeah, I think this is a non-issue right now. Now, if again CD Projekt Red starts talking about it and it's like, hey, do you want to edge in the team deathmatch version? Buy this microtransaction and it makes your character stronger for a short period of time. Then we're having an entirely different conversation. But right now, I think people are jumping the gun a little bit because again, they haven't said anything that I think is inherently problematic.
Yeah, I think we're fine. I think people getting Battlefront, Star Wars Battlefront 2 is the perfect example because that was one of the most over your head, just literally keep paying until you win, and very egregious. Call of Duty has that same issue. Again, CD Projekt Red hasn't burned us yet to that extent. So they, as of right now, they benefit of the doubt until we're proven wrong. So
yeah, with so many people, I feel like doing things very, very wrong. I just don't see why to crucify CD Projekt Red as one of the few people who I feel like have given you the most bang for your buck in terms of developers. I mean, Witcher is an incredible package, and you could easily spend 120, 200 hours with that solid $60 experience, which is actually less now because it's been some time.
Yep.
So, and especially if you get the complete edition with Blood and Wine and stuff like that. So I don't feel any reason why to feel that they're gonna wrong us in any way. And again, this project, from what they've said, their words, this is like a 2022 thing. So right now, I think all the speculation is way too early to even possibly know what this is ultimately going to look like.
Yeah.
So I guess we could jump into the next story, and it's probably one of the biggest ones of the podcast.
Yeah, exciting.
We finally have seen the totality of Xbox's next-gen offerings, front to back. So let's start. There's going to be 2 consoles, and this was rumored for a long time. The Xbox Series X is going to be the main console, with the Series S being a downscaled down version that's a little bit cheaper. And we have more information about them from a tweet. And they seem to tweet after everything was basically leaked. And they're like, all right, so here's the tweet. This is everything.
Yeah.
So, and I really do appreciate that, instead of them getting into deny mode where, well, no, we had a conference scheduled, we're going to do it through the conference. They're like, you know what, screw it, here's everything. So the Series X is going to launch at $499. The Series S is going to launch at $299. They're both releasing on November 10th, and pre-orders for them are going up September 22nd, which I believe is next Tuesday. Not this upcoming Tuesday, the Tuesday after that. Mm-hmm. The Series S is going to have no disk drive, and it aims to game natively at 1440p. It's the smallest Xbox yet, so it's the same height as the One S, but it's a lot shallower. And it differs from the Xbox Series X mostly from the GPU, so that's a graphics processing ability, not so much the memory and the CPU and stuff like that. Again, I'm not a PC person, so understand that I'm taking a very top level approach to this, breaking down. There's way more people. Go to Digital Foundry, they have awesome breakdowns and stuff like that. You could check them out. The Series X, as revealed earlier, is aiming to game with 4K native as opposed to the 1440p, and it has a superior GPU. So that's the main differentiator between the Series X and the Series S, is the lack of a disk drive on the Series S and GPU capabilities. Lastly, to make the next gen transition easier, because that's been an important thing to Microsoft, is to make people first off not feel forced to upgrade to next gen, and if you do choose to upgrade to next gen, to make it the easiest thing possible. So they're expanding the Xbox All Access program that they actually showed off about a year and a half ago. It's been some time where they actually first unveiled that. And that's basically putting your console on layaway, basically, where you get the console and you just pay for it in installments. So you can get the Xbox Series S for $25 a month for 24 months, and you can get the Xbox Series X starting for $35 a month for 24 months. So a $10 differential for a console that's actually $200 more. So I think that's actually a really, really good deal. Not to mention, if you have the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, you don't have to buy any additional games
you're set.
Yeah, so all you need is the console day one, and you have everything that Microsoft has to offer, at least in a first-party capability, and people who choose to work with them. And we're going to get deeper into the Game Pass boosts that we're getting soon, too. That's going to be really awesome. But what are your thoughts about Xbox's new strategy?
I liked everything they were talking about. I've always agreed that this, the All Access program works well, because this is not something we're not used to. People do this with their phones constantly. They're paying a certain amount, $20 on your, plan to obviously pay your phone off and stuff like that. And that just makes sense for a system like this, obviously, because, phones now are like thousands of dollars, where these are, $500 or $300 if you want. And you have the option, especially if you're not into this crazy, like, I don't care what the graphics are. I just kind of want to have access to the new games, then that Series S is going to be speaking to you. Now, I was a little disappointed, but I think I may have called it. I'd have to go back and re-listen where I said this S is probably not going to have the disk drive. I don't remember if I mentioned that on here or off camera where I was like, what if it doesn't have a disk drive?
Yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah.
I think I did mention that. So, I still have my One X here and stuff like that. And again, looking at the breakdowns is a lot more like satisfying because again, I'm not a technical guy either. I don't know things are because I know people were trying to bash the S, the Series S, because it's so. And I think they even announced it where it's not going to play your Xbox. Oh God, these names are annoying. Your Xbox One games. It won't up-res them to the One X version right now. But again, I don't think that's the system's not for that. Like if you want the strong system, that's obviously what the X is for. If you just want access to these future games and have your system to do it, that's what the Series S is for. So all that technical stuff is a little much. I thought it was hilarious not hilarious, but leaks suck. But the fact that is that Microsoft and Sony have both been waiting way too long. I'm surprised that they were scared for. I don't know what their plan was. Series X for $500. This is exactly what people have been, guessing for a long time. Again, if 600 and above, it would have been wild to start seeing. But I think that the Series S at $299 is such a sweet spot, and you're gonna really push sales, especially this. The holidays are 2-3 weeks after.
Yeah.
Well, at least that's the holiday shopping season. You can be like, oh, here's the Xbox One, but for whatever $50, $100 more, you can get the Series S at $300, and sure, it doesn't have 4K. Most people won't notice. 1440p still looks good if the game runs well and stuff like that. It'll still look sharp. Obviously, it doesn't stop Switch sales, and that runs 720. So, I think this was all fantastic news. I was, for a while, I was always like so dedicated, like I'm gonna get a PS5 no matter what, and I'm still going to. But now I was like, I may be able to get a Series S for $300. Why not?
Oh yeah.
And, even if I wanted to go a little bit more up to get the Series X, I'm like, I could maybe look into the All Access program, especially since I'm going to be dropping what I am on the PS5. I'm like, this is overall just all around really convenient and really consumer friendly, which is not something we always see from Microsoft, especially comparing to last gen, the way that launched. This is all great news. Like, I was super, astounded. I was like, it sucked that it leaked the way it was, and they jumbled it, but they definitely recuperated it really quick by playing it off, by being, listen, you guys memed it. I think their tweet was specifically, you memed the look, but here's the information now. Yeah. Because obviously the Series S looks weird. It does look weird but it's it is what it is. So I'm really excited. It's all fantastic news to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any major critiques from this strategy. I'm happy with it. I'm definitely going to be the Series S guy. Personally, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I didn't know that 1440p wasn't 4K. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to be completely honest. I thought 1440p was 4K. So when they're like, S plays at 1440p, and if you want the 4K experience, it's Series X, I was like, oh, that's not the same thing? Okay, my bad. So yeah, I'm cool with 1440p. I'm not that guy. As the big thing for me was like, don't worry, the Series S will hit the 120 frames per second. That's all I need to hear. If the performance is going to be just as fine, and we're just talking a resolution difference, I'm cool with that. Not to mention, the Series S is going to be able to play like the best Halo and the new Halo, the new Forza and whatever at like a really high quality. That's ultimately what I care about. And I know the critique is like, well, if you don't get the Series X, you won't be able to play the Xbox exclusives at the highest fidelity because, yeah, again, the third-party games I can play on the PS5. But you're not going to be able to play the Xbox games at the highest resolution. And I love Xbox. The Xbox exclusives are so few and far between that I'm not going to necessarily shell out $200 extra for an experience I'm going to get like a couple times a year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's just not that many exclusives. They're not going for that. So they made it clear, like, listen, you're going to be able to play everything here, and there's not going to be a ton of exclusives. So I'm not going to necessarily shell out $200 to play like a couple games at a slightly higher resolution. So yeah, the 300's a perfect spot, and that cemented, guaranteed that, yeah, if I am able to secure pre-orders for both of the PS5 and the Xbox, I'm getting both easily, because 300, and again, it's 300 and done. maybe you buy an extra controller, but I don't have to buy a whole bunch of games with it. So I'm just going to get the Xbox $300 and then be able to focus the rest of my money on the PS5. That's going to mutilate my bank account. I already know.
Yeah, those exclusives, man.
Yeah, I already know because the launch lineup that's gonna be a whole different can of worms. So I'm prepping my card right now. I'm making sure that's empty. I'm gonna try my best, but I know that's gonna be rough. Not to mention they still haven't said anything about pre-orders, let alone price. So I don't know what PS5 is gonna even look like, but I'm very much liking what Xbox is doing. No critiques from me, and the only thing I have a question at this point is, will there be anything marketed at launch, or is it just going to be kind of like a new console and then you could play what is offered there, or are they going to have anything launching around November to be able to play it on? That's the only thing I wonder about. Like, I know Dirt got delayed, but that's not really that big of a deal to me.
But on the other hand, Assassin's Creed got moved forward.
Yes, I did see that.
That got moved forward. I don't think that's in the news for later. I hope I didn't jump ahead. No, it's not. So we're getting Assassin's Creed a week early thanks to Microsoft because of this.
Yeah, that's exciting. And who knows? I might get that on Xbox just to be able to have something to play on it. Because, again, I like Game Pass, but I have Game Pass now. So a lot of the stuff that are on Game Pass right now, I've either played or don't have interest in. So if that's not going to get like a massive rehaul with a whole bunch of brand new games at the next launch, I'm probably going to either play some EA Play stuff, which we'll get into later, or Assassin's Creed probably at that point.
Yeah, we'll see. It's exciting times. We're on the super like hype train because of how close we are.
Yeah. I'm liking what I'm seeing from Xbox.
Yeah, let's keep rolling with it then. So we have some Nintendo news, but not like the craziest. So Switch to boost production, and Switch asking developers maybe to moving to 4K. So Nintendo is reportedly asking developers to make games that run in 4K, which could suggest that a more powerful Switch may be on the horizon. Now, this is not news we haven't heard before, but, so obviously take it with a grain of salt. This is all rumors. This is all stuff that keeps bubbling up, so there's probably some truth in it. But again, skeptical. So a Bloomberg report about Nintendo's plans to boost Switch production includes a brief mention of Nintendo's apparent request. Third-party developers have reportedly been asked to make their games 4K ready, which implies that the company is perhaps toying with the idea of higher resolution Switch. So Nintendo has apparently increased production of the console once again to meet demand, with 30 million units set as the new goal for the fiscal year, according to the report's sources. The Switch has now sold over 62 million units as of July 2020. So
impressive.
Which is very impressive and not what something people expected, especially coming off what happened with the Wii U. Now, like I was saying, these are rumors that we've been hearing constantly, and when it always comes out, when it's like board meetings and reports and phone calls and all these things. What did you think of this? Is there going to be a Switch 4K version?
Yeah, so the problem with the Switch is there's almost two devices that can take different angles on this. So you got to interpret this. You can interpret the story many different ways. Mm-hmm. So first off, 4K. Are they talking 4K native running or 4K upscaling? That is a big differentiator. That happened this generation with Xbox, which is is it running the games native at 4K or is it checkerboarding, upscaling, whatever, the same thing with the PS4 Pro. And that was upscaling. So that's one important differentiation to make. Also, there's a difference between the Switch itself playing 4K or the dock being able to translate that image onto 4K on the screen, because that's the difference between 720 and 1080 that we're seeing on the current device. There is not a chance in hell that they're able to make this portable device jump from 720p to 4K and be able to have a battery that lasts more than 30 minutes. That technology, as of what I'm aware of right now, and again, I'm putting that asterisk on there, I'm not aware of that technology existing. Yes, there are 4K phones, but they don't have attached controllers to them. And they're not running Breath of the Wild 2. You know what I mean? Yes, you're able to run freaking Temple Run on 4K on your phone or Fortnite or whatever. Yeah, you can. But you're not running Mario Odyssey. These are very different things. And the current Switch battery is around 4 to 6 being on the high end, 8 being ideal with little indie games, but 4 to 6 hours for the average first-party Nintendo game on the current Switch, outputting to 720 handheld. If you upscaled that to 4K with the brightness at its regular thing, with the controllers draining it, there's not. I mean, that thing's gonna last like 30 minutes. But if they've released a kind of a nicer looking Switch, maybe with a bigger screen that maybe can output 1080 native, but probably 720 still. But the dock itself can upscale the image to 4K, which is 100% possible. It already has a chipset to upscale it to 1080. Yep. They could very much upgrade that to boost the image to 4K, and that's what they're telling devs to be, which is, hey, the Switch is going to do what the Switch does, so have it be able to do that. But when you dock it, just have the image be able to upscale to 4K. I don't think that's a crazy ask, and that is probably what I see happening. Is there's no way you have a 4K Switch, but you can have a 4K dock for sure. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of how I interpreted it. And the 62 million units is really, really awesome, and that's makes it abundantly obvious that 3 years into this life cycle, it's selling like a handheld, not like a dedicated console. And handhelds have always had the ability to move way more units because, again, you have multiple per household, multiple per person sometimes. And so at 62 million units, the fact that it launched in March 2017, and here we are in September of 2020, and it's already past 60 million, already outselling multiple of their consoles. I mean, I'm really curious to see where this settles at this point. This console very much has a couple of years more life into it. And I'm curious to see how the Switch does against the Series X and the PS5. Now that, again, there's going to be such a power discrepancy. I'm curious to see how that looks. But ultimately, I'm excited to see when this hits 100 million units. Does this hit 150? I'd be surprised if it's able to hit around 150 because, again, that's just such an insane level to hit, and there's a lot of factors at play of like when the Wii sold what it did and when the DS sold what it did. It was a very specific time with specific technologies, and people latched onto those pieces of hardware for different reasons other than the actual games, where the Switch is very much a gaming experience. So yeah, I'm curious to see where it settles, but I'm really happy for what Nintendo was able to pull off here, and I'm curious to see what this 4K thing happens.
Yeah, again, we're in this wait and see with Nintendo because people are used to them, reiterating hardware. Now, we did get the Switch Lite, but that's still in the same family. Is this next Switch just going to be like, another Switch? Is it more like a DS to a 3DS, or is it like a DS to a DSi, which I think you've mentioned before? Yeah. What's that classifying? And obviously that helps their numbers if you keep it in the same family, but then you blur the line of your successor to your, processor.
Yeah, and I think marketing goes a long way too.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to have the biggest upgrade in the world to market it like you do. So I think it's in Nintendo's best interest. I know a lot of people are like, Nintendo has to release a new device to be able to fight the next gen fight with Xbox and Sony. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I don't think they need a whole new console, but I think they need a whole new way to market a slight upgrade to it, just to have something new, to be like, hey, Nintendo's in the fight too, so don't leave us behind. Don't forget, we're still here. We got new experience to do. Here's our Switch Pro, and it doesn't even need to be an insanely different device, just a new color SKU with a more upgraded dock. That's all they really need to keep the marketing up, because again, no one is going to Nintendo to be able to play games like Cyberpunk. That's just not what they're doing. That's not the fight they're making. But if they can have something with Breath of the Wild 2, for example, that can upscale the image to 4K, all they need to do is throw that term around. It doesn't need to play 4K native, because again, those guys, that's not the fight that people go to Nintendo for. So if they're going to be like, hey, the first 4K Zelda game, and it's just an upscale with a new dock and maybe a new color SKU for the Joy-Cons, that's more than enough to dominate some of the discussion during the next gen talks, for sure. I know Nintendo fans, that's all it's going to take to keep them occupied, for sure.
Yeah, I think, again, having stronger hardware, obviously we love getting new tech and stuff, but I think, software is a little bit more where they need to focus. Give people a reason to want to get a new Switch to keep playing your games and, to hold on to their Switches.
For sure. So I guess we can move into the next story, and we're going back to Microsoft here, and I give myself a lot of the Microsoft stories, so I hope I don't come off like a fanboy, because believe me, I'm not. Believe me, I'm the furthest thing from a Microsoft fanboy. Ask Steve. Ask how I talked about them for many years.
Oh, no, yeah. We know.
But, so Microsoft announced that Xbox Game Pass will soon come with EA Play at no extra cost. In a blog post, Microsoft confirmed that the Game Pass Ultimate and PC subscribers will get access to more than 60 of EA's biggest and best console and PC games, including Need for Speed Heat and FIFA 20. They'll also be able to play select new releases like the upcoming FIFA 21 and the recently released Madden NFL 21 for 10 hours, where you could decide whether or not to buy a game. So it's kind of like an early access demo type situation there, where you get kind of timed thing to either keep it or to send it back. It's kind of like what Steam does. For Game Pass Ultimate, you'll be able to stream some of the best EA Play games, and they've asked Microsoft and EA to clarify which ones on Android devices in the Engadget interview, but they haven't gotten any answer with that yet. So basically, Game Pass being the best value in games out right now. It's the best deal out right now. That's not a
Absolutely
crazy thing to say. You get over 100 access to 100 full games for under $15 a month. I mean, that's an incredible deal. And on top of that, they're throwing EA Play. And again, say what you want about EA. I am not a fan of them as a publisher. But boy, do they got some good games under their arsenal. And for them to be able to fuse that, it's kind of what I said was going to happen, which is the big expansion and the big consolidation, which is you're going to have all of these subscription-based services, but not all of them could survive. So they're going to consolidate. And I think EA honestly saw their numbers and be like, you know what, we'd make a lot more money if we just tacked it onto a subscription service that is working, which is Game Pass. And so this makes an immense amount of sense. And this is just incredible that they found a way to make the value proposition even better. And at this point, it's like, what else can they possibly do? The only way they could surprise me is if they were able to get Ubisoft service to fuse with Game Pass too, then forget about it. They win. But no, this is an awesome thing. It makes me really excited to play some of these EA games that are annualized that I do not want to fork out $60 a year. That if they found a way to fuse that into Game Pass, hey man, I'm there. I'll play Madden. I'm just not spending no $60 a year on that. So are you happy about this story?
I mean, obviously, I have to be, because, I mean, I already have Game Pass. I have Game Pass on PC. You know, I have the Ultimate Game Pass, which gives me it everywhere.
Yeah, me too.
And having more games in that library is going to be fantastic. You know, the 10 hours before deciding to play, let me tell you, 10 hours is all I want to play of Madden. And that'll probably be it for the year. You know, I'm not going to play Madden that much. But so if you can, like, oh, here's a 10-hour trial of Madden.
That's all I need.
One weekend, and that's it. I'm not going to be one of those guys. Especially, you know, Madden 21 is not doing so hot. It is in a really bad shape and stuff. So I'm not buying. You know, and I usually buy one sports game at the beginning of launch. So I was planning to get the 21, you know, Madden 21, so I can have it for the next gen. And now I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. And now I don't even have to, because thank you, EA Play. You're mixing in with Game Pass. So that's going to be incredible. I'm hoping they put maybe some exclusives in a sense. You know, Dead Space is kind of locked behind a lot of walls depending where you want to play. Imagine if they can really, well, listen, you can't play Dead Space. Let's say you can't play Dead Space Trilogy on PS5 at all, whatever it may be. Oh, but it's right here on EA Play through Game Pass on Microsoft. That's when you start getting some good jabs in.
Yeah, and if you really think about this, with Game Pass and the next Xbox coming out, you essentially have access to the Mass Effect trilogy.
Yeah.
With this subscription, it's already backwards compatible, but yeah, you're going to be able to get your Series X or Series S and have full access to the entirety of the Mass Effect franchise, possibly for free, or free relative to your subscription.
With your subscription, yeah.
Yeah, so this is a really awesome thing, and very few services have such a good value proposition that you get to the point where you're just like, are you guys okay? Like, are you able to afford this? Like, that's how good it's gotten, where it's like, yeah, how far can you push this before you're losing money on some of your property?
Yeah, this is like it's like a too good to be true deal. Like, if someone would have told me this, like, oh, imagine EA putting all their games, it's not all the games, but collaborating with Xbox to put some games on Game Pass. I'm like, I just wouldn't believe it, you know? And that's why it's like, who's next? Like, I looked at Ubisoft, I was thinking Ubisoft, I'm like, well, you know, Uplay, you know, will that work? And, you know, not necessarily will they team up with Microsoft, will they team up with PlayStation? You don't know. We don't.
That would be interesting.
This beginning of this gen has shown that we do not know what to expect. You know, we're launching with 2 SKUs each system. We're launching with, you know, you don't even have to buy titles for this system. Game Pass is there. Games day one. It's incredible. So we're at the point we don't know what to expect. So it's exciting.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. Hey, PlayStation, if you want to be petty and you want to compete, go contact the folks at Ubisoft and fuse Now and Uplay. I'm telling you, that changes things a little bit. Because I'm not the biggest proponent of PS Now. But if you're able to overhaul some of that technology, fuse the PlayStation Plus subscription with the PlayStation Now subscription to do kind of like a PlayStation Plus Ultimate, and then throw Uplay in there. That changes things a lot.
Then you're getting then, in a sense, it'd be great for us because we obviously have both feet in both waters, but then you're looking at it, now a content filled quote unquote console war. I don't want to use that term, but then you're starting to look at listen, you keep sweetening the pot and people are gonna win. That's it. It's just everyone wins.
Yeah, and don't forget also you can play Breath of Fire on Nintendo's online service too to compete with EA Play.
Yeah, and what do they have, hockey? It's just
NES hockey.
It's just called hockey. Oh man, Nintendo, please.
We'll pray for you guys.
All right. Yeah. So speaking of Ubisoft, I didn't do it on purpose, but nice transition. So we had a Ubisoft Forward at a terrible time. They chose a Thursday midday. For us it was midday. It was 12:00 on a Thursday afternoon to hold another Ubisoft Forward. Again, I don't know why they didn't decide to do a weekend, but it is what it is. So we got a lot of content, a lot of good news. So we're gonna kind of just bounce back and forth. So now we have Far Cry VR was first shown off, which is Return of Voss, which is probably the most famous villain, except probably the father from Far Cry 5. But Voss was a huge villain from Far Cry 3. Now, unfortunately, as of right now, this won't be available to play at home via Oculus or PSVR. Right now, it's going to be only available at launch through the playable zero latency locations, where I don't even know where those are. I think that's really weird. It's probably going to be an exclusive, timed exclusive thing. I'd be surprised they don't want more people to play Far Cry VR. So, any thoughts on this for you?
I think it's awesome. It's absolutely not something. It's interesting them announcing basically a physical location thing this in the middle of COVID. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, it made me real weird. I was like,
And not to mention, I already, I have motion sickness issues, so this is definitely not something I'd ever touch. But I think it's not a bad idea to play around with your IP in different capacities like this. This makes me more open to okay, so Ubisoft's open to playing with their IPs in VR and stuff like that. I want to see that, a lot of the different horror franchises and stuff like that they own and stuff like that. So there's other franchises I'd like to see Ubisoft play with in VR more than Far Cry personally, but I ain't mad at it. But this is definitely a peculiar thing, because when do you guys plan on unveiling this? Because having shared headsets and a whole bunch of people around you like that in a fixed location during the COVID era is very interesting. It's an interesting approach.
Yeah, that's a deal breaker for me, because I was like, I'm not one. I love Far Cry obviously, but I'm not to the point of I need to see Far Cry in VR, and I don't let people. I let very few people put my PSVR headset on. So imagine just being in a line of people you don't know if they showered. And so I let you use my VR headset, but again, because of your motion sickness, you tried it on just for the experience, and then you were quickly off it. But I
got the spins real fast.
Yeah, I don't let every person walk in here. Oh, can I try your VR? I'm like, no, I have to put this on my face.
Yeah.
Or on my eyes. So we'll see. I mean, who knows? It may be just a short VR experience, so it might not even be worth bringing to PSVR and Oculus and all that stuff. But we'll see with that. So continue on. The Division 2 still there, still populated. So they just got a new mode called the Summit. Are you still in the Division?
I've dabbled a couple times in the past few months, but ever since that New York expansion came out, I don't have that expansion, so the base game is kind of dead at this point. A lot of people have jumped into the expansion, and I don't have it yet, and that's what this mode is tied to. So I probably won't dive into this mode. I'm kind of over Division 2 at this point.
Yeah, same. I was like, that's cool for people who are still up to date with it, and I'm like, if you're still playing the Division 2, which is a good game, we both recommend it.
Oh yeah.
Here's more modes and stuff like this, and you're getting, you're getting your bang for your buck. Except this stuff usually is tied to a pass, or so be it.
Yeah, the game's $3 now, so if you are interested in it, just buy it. Just buy it.
Why not? So we got a renaming re-reveal. So we have Immortals: Phoenix Rising, which was known as Gods and Monsters. which we saw a while ago. Then it went super quiet, rumors that it was canceled and stuff like that. But now it's back as Immortals: Fenyx Rising, and you're playing the main protagonist is Phoenix, if I'm correct from what I've seen. It's weird because like certain YouTubers got early access and there's some conflicting stories. So I'm surprised that Ubisoft let it get like that. But the game looks kind of cool, kind of interesting. I love Greek mythology. What was your thoughts on this? Because it's been a while, and then the rumors have been coming around that they renamed it and reworking it along with other titles. So what do you think so far of Immortals?
Yeah, I'm feeling this. I was very on the fence when it was Gods and Monsters. At first, obviously, it piqued my attention because it was like, hey, did you like Odyssey? Well, we took kind of like an Assassin's Creed Odyssey approach to this and made it its own project with a different art style, but it's kind of like the mythological portions of what they played around with Odyssey as its own game. I was like, okay, that sounds pretty cool. They've revealed the art style, and that has taken me the longest point to kind of really get with. And it's not that I have a problem with that kind of... It's not cel-shaded, but it's definitely a very cartoony look to it. It's more the brightness that I'm like, I don't know. That's going to take me some time to get used to. But now that they've kind of shown it off, I'm sold on it. I'm digging it. I'm liking what I'm seeing. I'm probably going to jump into it for sure. I like the expansive world. I like the different characters that they've introduced and the different enemy types and variants and stuff like that. And I like the main antagonist from what they've shown off. So I think there's a lot of fun to be had here. And I'm curious to see how it runs ultimately because, again, this is an expansive open world. I'm like, how big is this world? Again, is this going to be the Odyssey-sized world? And is this going to be some massive experience? Or is this just kind of like an open world? It also gives me Breath of the Wild vibes sometimes, too, when it kind of zoomed out and showed kind of the vistas and the very cartoony look of it. I'm like, okay, is this more of a Breath of the Wild more experience? Or is this an Odyssey experience? Because these are both open world games, but very different types of open world. So I'm sold on it. I'm not like over the moon excited about it, but I'm curious to see what they do there. Because I think if they're able to pull it off and they have a fun gameplay loop, then I could see, burning some time in there for sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. Again, I'm not a big fan of the name. I don't know why you want to throw so many. Why isn't it just called Fenyx Rising? I think Gods and Monsters was a generic name. I know some people really liked it for some reason. I think it was way too generic.
I think Immortals hits better than the whole thing. Either Fenyx Rising or just Immortals honestly hit better than Immortals Fenyx Rising.
Yeah, it's really weird. And I felt the same. I was like, the cartoony... So I did a mistake and I watched the reveal trailer, which had this really dumb song, and it made it seem very lighthearted. And I'm like, oh no. I was like, I'm expecting a little bit more darker themes because, that all that mythology is really, dark themed if you get into it.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, okay, yeah. Then I felt the same, like, oh, it's just kind of Breath of the Wild. But then I see some of the open world, I'm like, it looks kind of empty. But again, we haven't seen enough of it yet. I'm sure we'll get way more breakdowns. Coming soon, actually. So, and here's one that I did not expect. Next that they announced, so Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time remake. I enjoyed the Prince of Persia trilogy. I know they did other games. I only played the 3 main titles. I did not expect them to do a Sands of Time remake. Were you expecting this? Did you get caught off by this?
Definitely not expecting this, but when I saw it revealed, I was like, this is smart. This is a great thing, because people have been asking for Prince of Persia to come back in some capacity, so you bring it back. And on top of that, they've chose the perfect time to do it, because for the first time in a really long time, they're not directly competing with people that they inspired. So Uncharted has been gone for some time. The rebooted Tomb Raider has been gone for some time. Sucker Punch is out of the game of playing those kind of navigational climbing things. Ghost of Tsushima is a way far departure from the infamous Sly Cooper era, where obviously Prince of Persia shared a lot of heritage with that. So now that these kind of navigational, jumping, adventure type games have kind of subsided and nobody's really ready to compete with them, Prince of Persia kind of get to dominate that space for a little bit. So I think this is awesome to see this game kind of come back, and in many ways they can have the Tony Hawk effect, where they can deliver a very polished experience for people who have a lot of fond feelings towards an older franchise and not have to directly compete with their competition who existed back in the day. So I think this is a smart decision. I like the way it looks. I think they cleaned it up really nicely. I'm not super intimately familiar with the original one, so this would be a fairly new experience for me. The only Prince of Persia game that I played in depth, and I can't remember the name, but it was the one with the dark version of him. The 2 versions.
2 Thrones?
I think so. That's the one that I played back in the day. I've never played Sands of Time, so I'm excited to jump into it. And if it's a budget title, I'm assuming it's going to be probably like a $40 experience. I don't mind, forking out $40 to play it and play around with this 10, 15 hours. I don't mind. I'm definitely into it.
Yeah, the pre-orders are up, and unless I really messed up, I'm pretty sure the pre-orders are $40, which again,
Good.
That's a super nice spot so far. It seems to be like for remakes. I know like Destroy All Humans was 40. Amazon had it for 30, but so I got it for 30. But that $40 really seems to set expectations. Like, listen, we know this is not a brand new game, but experience this classic game in a brand new way. They get to really bring some of the stuff they couldn't do way back then to the new style. Some cutscenes looked a little funky to me. I don't know if it's just again it's early access. There's some things just look really blurry, and the prints looked a little weird. But the gameplay looked solid when he was running on the wall. The time rewind. It's been a long time since we really had that mechanic, and Prince of Persia's been gone forever. This is the series that inspired. Assassin's Creed came from a Prince of Persia, so it's going to be interesting to see. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, it looked a lot like a PS3 remaster rather than a PS2 remake.
Yeah.
Right now, but ultimately, it could be an early build again. Things change dramatically, and once it's on, in our hands playing it, it could look a lot better. But from what they look like, it looked like kind of like an up-res of janky textures that maybe at one time weren't sharp, as opposed to a ground up remake of a PS2 game. So that was kind of interesting. That was a good point.
Yeah, I thought I was the only one who noticed. I'm like, some scenes looked good, and then other scenes I'm like, he looks waxy. I'm like, he looks weird. So, but we'll see. I am excited for this. So we'll see more of that soon. Some other information, just Hyperscape, which is Ubisoft's battle royale, added a new turbo mode. I don't really have much to say about Hyperscape. I did play. I think I put the gameplay on the channel. I did play it once. I played a little bit more after that, and it's his generic battle royale. It's not for me. Here's a new mode. I don't think. Do you have anything to say on the Hyperscape? All right.
Not even a little.
Yeah. So it's just a generic battle royale. So here's a new mode. If you're into there, I'm assuming there is some sort of community there. I don't know, but there it is. More for you guys. So a community that I know is huge. Rainbow Six Siege. Sam Fisher, we've gotten a lot of tease that Sam Fisher was coming to Siege and stuff like that, so we got some of that trailer, some of that gameplay. Didn't really speak to me. I'm not a big Rainbow Six Siege fan. I'm a huge Splinter Cell fan, but this was nothing but a big tease for me, especially since it wasn't followed up by what I wanted, which was a Splinter Cell announcement. But anything to mention on Rainbow Six Siege?
I mean, man, do I feel bad for the Splinter Cell fans. Like, they'll give you anything but a new Splinter Cell.
Yeah, it sucks. It's at this point where it's like, well, it wasn't at this Ubisoft Forward, then it's just not in the works. It's just not in the works. I don't believe there's a Splinter Cell game being made.
Yeah, man. I really hope for the Splinter Cell fans that they get a new game, but it seems like they want to bring him to everything but that. So
exactly.
I mean,
Stealth games just aren't in the cards right now, so let's make my Daredevil game and then we'll be happy.
Exactly.
All right. Now, a news that we were hoping for a long time. This is one of the first things we were hoping for when we launched Neo Vintage Games, and that is the return of Scott Pilgrim. Scott Pilgrim versus the World. The game is being undelisted and is being released now re-released on PC. Now you got it on PlayStation 4, Switch, Xbox. It's back. It's coming with all the DLC, which was Knives, with Knives, and then Steven Stills. I didn't see, so Steven Stills DLC originally came with online multiplayer. I'm assuming that's just naturally baked into the game. It's so good to be able to play this game again. I tried to play it the other day, and my PlayStation just was not cooperating. PS3, is struggling in its old age, and the Xbox version just didn't want to play correctly. I'm so glad I'm gonna have this. I'm really, really hoping, because I know Limited Run Games has come out and they said they have not been in talks at all with Ubisoft and them. I want a physical. I need a physical. I cannot do this licensing nonsense anymore. I can't wait another 10 years and have Brian O'Malley Twitter tease me for it seems forever. So I'm hoping someone gets us a physical. If not, I'm probably going to buy this everywhere just to have every chance of bringing it forward. Super excited. I know you were super excited when I sent you the screenshot.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be comfortable until I got this on disc or on cartridge. Period.
Yep. So
Yeah, man, I'm excited about this. I'm like first off, I mean, this had to happen. The amount of teasing and stuff like that. If they didn't announce this is World War III. But yeah, again, they burned us so crazy with the digital version that there is zero way that I'm gonna feel okay until I got a way to ensure that, like, in the event that they screw the licensing up again, because again, after the PS3 generation and they were licensing digital games and we were bumping into the whole delisting issue, I was like, well, going forward, they're definitely going to figure out this digital license thing and we won't have to deal with this in the future. They'll find a way to license things in perpetuity so we won't have to worry about delisting. But as the years progress, we're still seeing things delisted all the time. And I'm like, okay, so they haven't figured this out all the way. And so I just don't trust the digital ecosystem like that because, again, your digital purchase is as present as the licensor chooses it to be, and games are still disappearing all the time that were released not super long ago. I'm seeing that these stories where they're like, hey, so and so chose not to re-up the license on this, so this game is going to be removed from the digital store. If you have it, beautiful. If you don't, too bad. That's crazy that in 2020 that's still a problem to deal with, and I just don't think that this game is exempt from that. So ideally, obviously, you'd like a full-scale Amazon, Walmart, everywhere release of it. But if limited run has to do it, that's fine. That's something.
I'm shelling out. I don't care what they charge me for. I'm getting it physical.
Yeah, I just hope I'm able to get it before it goes to resale, because if it goes to resale, it's a wrap.
Oh,
that's skyrocketing to $250.
You know, if not, I'm gonna end up buying this game multiple times. I'm probably get it on PC just so I can always keep it installed and not worry about it. I kind of want to get it on PlayStation so I can get the trophies, because I almost platinumed it on PS3. Oh, actually, it didn't have a plat. Actually, it had a lot of trophies. I'm hoping it has a platinum now. And I have to have this on Switch. I absolutely have. I mean, that's a given. I know I gotta get this on Switch.
That pixel art on that screen is gonna look brilliant.
I can't wait. So I'm gonna have it like everywhere just in case. All right. So continue right through. Watch Dogs Legion's getting some stuff. So UK rapper Stormzy, I think that's how you pronounce it, correct?
Yes.
I did look into him. Will appear in Watch Dogs Legions. Obviously, the game takes place in the UK. But also, a surprise to me, the original protagonist, Aiden Pierce from Watch Dogs 1, will also be getting his own paid DLC story content. Weird stuff. Stuff. I don't understand. Watch Dogs Legions was really pushing the whole no protagonist, anybody's an everyman kind of story. Now you're starting to hit us with, big names. UK rapper Stormzy will be, that'll be a fun thing, obviously, for people in the UK, people familiar with his work. The Aiden Pierce stuff really caught me off guard because he wasn't a great main character.
Yeah, he wasn't.
I played this game very little. I think when we first became friends, I showed you it on PS4, and I was like, yeah, this game's boring. There's nothing to do. I would have been way more enticed if they brought Marcus from Watch Dogs 2 over.
Yeah, I agree with that, yeah.
And it's probably in the works again. I just didn't know how to react to this. Again, Watch Dogs Legions, I'm very, very lukewarm on. I'm like, it looks okay. I'm like, it looks like it needs a main character, though, to bring this game together. And now you're going to start charging us for it? It's really weird stuff. What was your reaction to some of this?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I first heard them describing who they were going to work with, I want to give myself a little credit. I guessed Stormzy. Because I listened to a great deal of UK hip hop and the grime scene, so I was like, well, if they're probably gonna link up with somebody that's very like accessible and popular and well known, that's not too much of a street guy. So I was like, oh, Stormzy. Yeah, I like Stormzy's music a lot, and I'm pretty familiar with his music. It does definitely fit the rebellious aesthetic of Legion for sure. So that makes all the sense in the world why they'd link up with him, and it's a great move on their end. It would literally be the equivalent of like them releasing a GTA game in the United States and linking up with Drake. Like, it's a very good fit, judging by the aesthetic they're going for. And so I'm happy with that. The Aiden Pierce stuff really caught me off guard because I didn't realize there was demand for him to come back in any capacity. I didn't know people liked Aiden Pierce, but I went online. There is definitely a contingent of people who really like Watch Dogs 1 and do not like Watch Dogs 2, which is mind-blowing to me.
That's weird.
Because I love Watch Dogs 2, and it's not even comparison. I think the first one is very, very dry and boring, personally. I think there's some cool stuff that they do with the tech, but the general aesthetic and dark vibe, it's edgy, it's not for me. And I loved the bright kind of San Francisco look of the second one. But yeah, some people really like that kind of dark, I mean, anonymous type dude, like, the 4chan guy. Like, they like that kind of hacker look to it. So I'm glad for those people who wanted him back, but it's not something I'm interested in. I'm definitely into Legion. I definitely plan on getting this game, but I have no intention on shelling out any amount of money to play as Aiden Pierce.
No, yeah, I feel the same, where I'm just like confused on it. Again, Legion, I do have it pre-ordered. I'll give them that, mainly because Amazon did have it very low.
Yeah.
That one time I sent you the link, I was like, hey, super low. So I'm excited for that. Yeah, I looked, again, I wasn't too familiar with Storms. Yeah, I was going to actually ask you, and I just looked it up. And I was like, okay, I listened to some of his stuff. I'm like, oh, I agree with you 100%. I'm like, oh, his stuff matches.
It's a good match, yeah.
I was like, obviously, I'm like, oh, he matches them. And the GTA stuff is a great comparison. I'm like, all right, so this works. So I'm excited for that. Aiden, man, I just remember that birthday scene when you walk into like your niece's and he's just in a trench coat and a hat, and I'm like, he was so dry. I wonder if it's the same voice actor, or they're gonna try to excite people for that, but we'll see.
I like his design now. I like the new design for sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He looks better, so I'm like, all right, maybe they're trying to revamp it because they want a future Watch Dogs game to. Well, Legion doesn't have a main character, so I guess you can't do a major crossover, but I guess crossover with 1 and 2 or something like that. But we'll see. And then last from the Ubisoft Forward was Riders Republic, which was their new, I don't know how to describe it, biking, motocross kind of game. It looks cool. It gave me a lot of vibes from their own, I want to say it's their own title, The Trials.
Yeah.
Is them. That is Ubisoft. It kind of looks like a successor to that, obviously, except not in a 2D style. I saw a lot of flying down mountains, colorful characters, crazy costumes. It looks like a fun time. I'm kind of feeling this. I was like, I'm kind of digging this. What did you think of this final reveal for them?
Yeah, I mean, I liked what I saw. It looks really, really fun, especially if it has a good multiplayer integration. I could see us kind of going online and riding down mountains on bikes and stuff like that. I could see having a lot of fun with it. When I first saw it, I literally guessed in my head. I was like, oh, it's like Trials meets Fall Guys. Like, that's what I thought it was, where you get a whole bunch, you choose your vehicle, you try to navigate different things, kind of like Trials, but it's whoever makes it down to the mountain either first or in one, bundle, you qualify. But that, I guess that's not what it is. It doesn't seem like it's kind of a battle royale thing, like I thought it was. But ultimately, yeah, I want to see more gameplay from this, because I'm sold on the idea, but I need to see how the moment-to-moment gameplay is, and what different vehicles you can use, and what the multiplayer integration is, and what their general goals are for this. Is this a full package? Is this a perpetually online type of game? We don't have enough information for me to render a hard verdict on it.
So I'm under Ubisoft North America, so I'm going to read really quickly because this is some even stuff I missed apparently. So it goes, jump into Riders Republic, a massive multiplayer playground, ski, snowboard, bike, or wingsuit across an open world sports paradise. Race and mass start events, develop your rider's career, or kick back with friends and free roam the parks. Live out your rider's fantasy as you roam free in a huge, vibrant open world, always buzzing with other players around you. Immerse yourself in iconic American national parks like Yosemite, mashed up for your shred, squad up with your friends and compete in a wide range of multiplayer modes. Feel the rush of downhill races, dominate maps in team versus team competitions, or give it your best shot in an epic mass PvP race with more than 50 other players. And that's that battle royale factor. So I felt the same. So I thought that well. So there is a quote-unquote battle royale mode into it as well.
That makes sense. Okay.
So it's I'm excited to see this. I mean, to have a casual, again, I don't know what pricing and stuff like that, sort of casual, fun. We're not huge sport players, but this is kind of more our, casual.
I can do vehicles.
Yeah, we do a lot of free skate in Tony Hawk. Yeah. So doing a lot of skiing and free stuff gave me a lot of SSX vibes and stuff like that. So super excited to see this. And
we can have some fun with this for sure.
It definitely looks like it's gonna be a fun thing. Again, as long as it's priced accordingly, and I hope it at least gives you some stuff to do off. It's a lot of multiplayer. I've said a lot of multiplayer, a lot of teams. I'm hoping there is some single player stuff where I learn the ropes besides tutorials and stuff like that, and
like a Forza type campaign.
Yeah, so we'll see. Yeah, something so I can do when my friends aren't online.
Yeah.
So that was it for Ubisoft Forward. I think this was a little bit better of a Ubisoft Forward than their previous one. I think the last one, besides really Assassin's Creed, had not much. It was Assassin's Creed and Legion. So this one had a little bit more meat to it, a lot of more variety. So I was excited for this Ubisoft Forward.
Yeah, I'm not mad at it at all. And when you have like a single publisher like Ubisoft, having your own conference on a regular basis is not an easy thing to pull off. So I commend them for that, because not a lot of people can do stuff like this. Like, again, Bethesda did yearly conferences, and they were having trouble filling it in sometimes, let alone Ubisoft doing a couple a year. I mean, I got to commend them, and this one was pretty good. I love every single announcement? No, but the fact that I got more than one thing from a single announcement is very commendable.
Yeah, again, I did skip forward a few times, but I was like, there were plenty of times where I was like, I've rewatched some of these trailers because I'm like, I'm excited, it's cool.
Yeah, I zoomed through Hyperscape, I ain't gonna lie to you.
Oh yeah, as soon as I saw that, I was like,
yeah, no thanks.
I was like, I wish I never even played that game. But it is.
All right, so I guess we can move into our final story, which is an exciting one, and I said this on the news. We don't usually do dedicated stories to a single game announcement, but this is a game announcement from a major IP from one of the major 3 publishers. So we got to talk about it, which is Nintendo unveiling a brand new Zelda game. It's releasing this year, November 20th. It's Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. So this is a sequel to the first Hyrule Warriors game. It's set 100 years before Breath of the Wild. And important to note, this is a Musou game. So despite the way it looks like a Breath of the Wild sequel, but it is not. You're going to be fighting massive hordes of enemies, kind of like Dynasty Warriors and Persona Scramble and all the different kind of Musou games we've been seeing. I was not into Hyrule Warriors, the first one. It was kind of like a generalized Zelda experience. You see Zelda people from different games and stuff like that, and it was kind of just a celebration of the franchise as a whole. This one definitely seems way more focused, and it's plot heavy, and that is a big thing because it's plot from a game that was very plot deficient, which was Breath of the Wild, which was an immaculate game that I loved very much, but it was plot light. That was one of the major critiques I had of it. And so the fact that they're kind of filling in some of that lore and having gameplay that is decently fun, I'm not mad at this at all. And it was a interesting year for Nintendo. We were always asking, like, what do they have lined up for the end of the year? And they're hitting us with not only a brand new Mario collection, but a major Zelda game. I'm not mad at that at all. So how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I was super excited to see this. Again, I'm confused why Nintendo didn't do like this giant So it's officially been past a year since we've gotten a like Nintendo Direct, original style.
Yes.
I was like, why haven't we gotten this massive one where you could have showed the Mario collection, you could have showed this Game and Watch stuff, showed the Mario Kart Live, and then show us, a teaser to what's coming, because obviously Breath of the Wild 2 is coming, but here's something to hold you off until Breath of the Wild 2 is ready. And Hyrule Warriors was received well. It made a lot of sense. I played it on Wii U, which is where it launched. I never played the DS version because no.
Oh yeah, that barely ran, right?
And then I never got it on Switch. I've been playing to get it on Switch, but it's like, there's nothing really there. I know they added a few characters and stuff like that. But I agree with you where Hyrule Warriors was a celebration of like Zelda, which is why you had like Majora's Mask content and Ocarina and Twilight and all these characters with a small base story, incorporating that. So this one being pretty much the prequel to Breath of the Wild, because some of the most interesting stuff in Breath of the Wild to me, I was like, what happened 100 years ago? That Link was just like, I'll take a nap and just go to sleep, and what does Zelda have to do? Finally, we're gonna get those answers, and I thought this is where like some of the paid DLC was gonna go to in Breath of the Wild. It's not what we got. We got challenges and stuff like that. So getting finally some of that story, which is my big complaint about Breath of the Wild, was the lack of story and direction. Here's the game now with all that stuff. I do wish it was, I don't know what I was expecting. So Musou games is really, really weird with me. I can get into some of them. I'm not into any of the Dynasty Warriors. I wasn't into the Gundam ones. It made no sense to me. I do get into the One Piece ones. So I'm like back and forth. I really enjoyed Hyrule Warriors. I did not think it needed a sequel. But all in all, I am excited for this. I'm glad it looks like Breath of the Wild. They didn't like do a weird skin. I'm wondering how content-wise, because Hyrule Warriors 1 was really filled out because of all the other Zelda games that it was, crossing over with. How do you do that with Breath of the Wild to really fill that out? And I know they're going to focus a lot more on like the champions and having all those people. So it's exciting to see, and we're getting another update soon. If I'm not sure, they said the 26th of September. Which I, like an idiot, I misread as an update to Breath of the Wild 2. We were getting more information. I'm like, oh no, we're getting more information on Age of Calamity. I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, I hyped myself up for a disappointment, but I'm excited because I'm gonna have the Mario collection there. I'm gonna have the more casual Zelda game I can play, and I have tons of other stuff to catch up to on Switch. So my Switch will be getting some good use this fall while I'm hopefully playing, Miles Morales and a bunch of EA stuff on my Xbox.
And it's important to note the date it's releasing too, November 20th, which is, I mean, hey, I got to dap Nintendo up. You guys are bold, man. Right when the next gen consoles are, it's like, no, we got something too. We got something for you, and I respect it, man.
Yeah, it keeps themselves in the conversation. You got Mario that's going to be the talk for a couple weeks. Everyone talking about 64, Galaxy, and Sunshine. And then, I'm sure they have something for October, let it be big or small. But then November's going to be the hype train, and everyone's going to be talking about Microsoft and PlayStation, and well, now we got to talk about, because Zelda's such a big punch, Zelda's a big IP to swing around. So yeah, I give them the same thing. I'm like, oh, you guys are smart, because literally by that time everyone's got their systems, hopefully, and now you can, use one of your big guns to keep yourself in the conversation.
It's easy to get drowned out during that time, and so to find a way, like, and that's what I wanted to know, because I brought it up on the news. These Hyrule Warriors Musou games, these are Koei Tecmo games, right? If I'm not mistaken. This is not
correct.
Internal Nintendo developed, right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to clarify that because I brought that up and I'm like, it's interesting having kind of a third-party developed first-party IP game to compete with next gen. It's a very bold thing to do. And there's examples of how to do it, but it's not an easy thing to do. And yeah, I just want to shout out to Nintendo because again, that not many people, some people would avoid a next gen launch like that, like the plague. And it's like, all right, we'll boot it to next year when everything settles and people can focus on us. But no, they're right in the middle of it, right in November, and there's a couple games launching in December. But generally, that's PS5 and Xbox time. So
yeah,
shout out to them.
Yeah, great call on Nintendo for that. And I just wanted to quickly double check. So it is Omega Force and Team Ninja, which are the developers.
Okay.
And then Koei Tecmo is the publisher, obviously.
Got you. Okay, that makes sense. So I guess we can move on to the loose topic. And actually, this is a continuation of a topic that we did some time back, which was a look back at the Xbox One. Now that at the time, they had shown off the Xbox Series X. So we had kind of seen the Xbox One's lifestyle from front to back. Now they're moving on to something else. And we could kind of reminisce and talk about the highs, the lows, what are our thoughts generally about that generation. And so now that we have a clearer picture of the PS5, when around it's going to come out, we know it's probably going to be a November launch. We don't know the pricing yet, but we generally know about the console, what they're going for. We're heading into launch, lineup territory where we're going to find out what the games are. So we pretty much have all the main PS4 games. Now that Last of Us is out, Ghost of Tsushima is out, those are the major first-party releases that were the PS4, and everything going forward, with exception for Miles Morales, judging by when that falls, is going to be a PS5 game. So, and Miles Morales, is Miles Morales going to be a PS5 exclusive, or is that coming out on PS4 too? Do you know?
It has not been announced.
So we're anticipating that that's going to be a PS5 game.
As of right now, it's a PS5 game. That's it.
Okay, so yeah, so the PS4 for the most part is done. So now we can look back at the PS4 highs, lows. Steve, you were there from the beginning. I adopted a couple months in. Mm-hmm. What are your feelings about the PS4 in comparison to previous generations? Do you think this was a win for them, a loss for them? What are your feelings?
I mean, obviously, it was a huge win for them. So I remember pre-ordering it. I was at GameStop for some reason. And I was like, well, pre-orders sold out quickly because GameStop is terrible at pre-orders sometimes, especially coming down to systems and collectibles. But I happened to be in there. They're like, I happened to be in there as they got the call that they were allowed to take more pre-orders. So I was like, I put whatever I was buying back on the shelf. I said, here's $100. I want my... And at the time, this is 2013. Getting some of this hardware online was not a thing. Like, I wanted to go to a store and get my system. I didn't want to get it online. I wasn't really shopping on Amazon yet. And Amazon was nowhere near, what it was. So I was like, day one. And they're like, so I'm like, I was adamant. I'm like, you're secured. She's like, you're going to get your PlayStation on that day. And I just remember counting down the days, keeping the money separated, getting super teased by, the conferences they were having. Super teased that I was able to bring, like, a DualShock 4 and, like, 3 PS4 games home, like, 2 weeks before the PS4 launch because of some weird nonsense. I had like Knack, Assassin's Creed Black Flag, something else, and a DualShock 4 all at my house for what seems to be no reason. I just had it for 2 weeks prior to the PS4. So this was the console I was most hyped for, obviously, until this PS5 that I'm super excited for. But, this is something, this is the first time in a long time where I was going to be there in this generation. Obviously, I was working. I wasn't in school or anything. To be in this generation day one, I was so excited to be there day one. I got my PS3 years, I want to say almost 4 or 5 years into this, generation, because I didn't have money, I didn't have a job, I was in high school, so different times and stuff like that. And I look to my right, because this is where I have all my PS4 games, and I'm like, the amount of hours and hours I've had in my in this generation, between the first party games, the third party games, all this other crazy things. Like, this is my only experience with VR is through the PlayStation 4. I just can't see how anyone can say the PS4 was like a lackluster generation. Sure, not every game hit. Some games were The Order, 1886. Yeah. But other games, but look at these Knack and Knack 2. But look at some of these last, like, before I jump to the end of the generation, the beginning generation, I don't care what anyone says, Killzone Shadowfall is fantastic and still looks incredible. I remember playing Assassin's Creed Black Flag, which was the first Assassin's Creed where you don't play as an assassin. I was like, which is really weird. Was still fantastic, and to see the comparison to what it would have looked like on PS3, water textures and all these other things, it was super exciting to see. I'm like, I can't wait to see what this generation shows me. And this generation, thanks to Sony, thanks to PlayStation, I got to experience the, Resident Evil 2 and 3 remake, which I know aren't exclusive, but, I got Ratchet and Clank back in a sense. I got a really, really good Spider-Man game, like an incredibly good Spider-Man game where I thought Spider-Man was stuck. Beanox was, we got the Amazing Spider-Man, which was tied into the Garfield movies, and those are, those are there. They exist. Yeah. But, on top of that, I got Street Fighter V the whole generation. Street Fighter V came out pretty early, and that was a console exclusive, which was never really before seen with Street Fighter, to have just like straight up console exclusive like this. So this is one of the generations I've had the most fun with. And it's also, I have to give it that this is the first time I really looked at games and stuff as like masterpieces. Whereas like, I played a lot of games obviously growing up and all these other things, but some of these games are like true artwork. Like, you can't look at God of War and that whole experience and be like, oh, this was just that was true artwork to me. Spider-Man is a masterpiece. Again, Detroit Become Human, which was a game I had no really hyped for until I was working at GameStop and I got it, and that's a game where I was times getting choked up because of the decisions and stuff like that. I'm like, this, I never really cried playing PS3, I never cried playing PS2, but there's times I was playing games on the PlayStation 4 where, I was like, man, and not to get into the Spider-Man's ending, but when you gotta make that, when Peter makes that decision to save somebody or save, New York City, that kind of hit me a little bit. I was like, so it's like this, it changed my perspective and look on games, and that's something where I did not expect. I just thought, I'm gonna have the new system and I'm gonna play it. Now it comes with its shortcomings. Obviously, I was really hoping to get some backwards compatibility somehow, and sure, party chat is weird, and if I have headphones in, it's weird. I can't get sound out the TV, and then all these nonsense. But, the end of this generation, we got Ghost of Tsushima, which is one of my favorite games ever and might be my top game of this year. Last of Us, which we still haven't had our discussion on, showed me graphically and motion capture to its full extent what some of these companies can do, and why Naughty Dog, despite what you think of its story, what Naughty Dog on a technical standpoint can do beyond other companies. So I have to give it to them. They even pulled the Nintendo model, and so did Microsoft, but where they re-released their own system, not just in a slimmer form. They released, the Pro in a more powerful system, and kind of teased me into what 4K is and why it looks so good. Obviously, Xbox did it just a little bit better, but it's such a fantastic ecosystem, and the day's gonna come where one day I'm gonna have to pack up the PS4, and it's always a bittersweet moment. So for one day to have to pack up the PS4 back in its box and I can get it on my shelf, because I don't sell hardware. Don't sell your hardware, people.
No.
It's just going to be fantastic. And to look at all these games, and some of these games are not the great. I have Agents of Mayhem on my shelf.
Yikes.
But I also have the Danganronpa trilogy, which is fantastic. Which, even though it belongs on Vita, but I couldn't get it on Vita. But we have such fantastic games this way, you know. And Final Fantasy VII Remake, which was a recreation of one of my childhood favorite games. It's just such a fantastic time. What a time it was to play PlayStation between these years, and to experience such a variety of stuff. To end this generation, funnily enough, weirdly enough, playing Tony Hawk of all things is what I'm playing most of my PlayStation. I'm playing Tony Hawk, something that I originally played on the original PlayStation, and now I'm playing and having almost more fun than I did back then. So it's such a weird experience, and the PS4 is just a system I'm always going to hold true and dear to me. I don't care. I was the day one when everyone's saying I was stupid to not pre-order the Xbox One. I don't know why, because I guess they didn't watch conferences, but
the 360 was just a monster. That's
I think people just were on that hype train, and but I was there. I was on the hype train on the PS3. I am slightly more of a Sony fanboy, but not completely. I call their nonsense out. But I was there. I bought Twisted Metal. I bought Starhawks and all these other games. And I saw their transition from being this company of trying to pump out a lot of garbage to pumping out slower and better things. And that's what I got from the PlayStation 4. I got better game experiences, and I also got masterpieces, and I got artwork, and I got true just perfection in some aspects. So, if I had to rate the PS4's life cycle out of a sense, I would have a minimum. I'd have to give it an 8, but I'd probably lean more to a 9, where besides a few features and a few stumbles, this was like what would be almost considered a perfect generation, in my opinion. So, taking a look back at PlayStation 4 for you, you came a little bit later. What was it like for you?
All right, yeah. So we were in very different places at the beginning of this generation. In many ways, the PS4 kind of saved my interest in gaming. And the reason for that is, unlike a lot of people, during the PS3 and 360 generation, I was not happy with the game industry at all. I didn't like the PS3. I didn't like the cell architecture. Things were janky. Things were messy. Yellow lighting. The Xbox 360 with the red lighting. I just was not happy with the hardware choices that they made that generation. And there was some excellent IP that came out at the time, but I wasn't really that happy with what they were doing back then. So they announced the PS4, and I'm starting to see some of the experiences. I'm starting to see hardware for the first time that I'm really feeling, and especially, compared to, again, at launch, I love Xbox, but I was like, the Xbox One at launch was a hunk of crap. I'm not feeling that. So, I finally jump into PS4, and I start playing these exclusives. I'm like, okay, so these new gaming experiences have something to offer. And just going deeper and deeper with, Bloodborne and God of War and Detroit and Horizon, I'm just like, holy crap, like PlayStation is on a run right now. And it was a feeling that I probably hadn't felt since Nintendo during the GameCube era, where a publisher is just on a run of great first-party IP. And so, yeah, by the end of the generation, it really kind of returned and re-inspired my love for PlayStation in many ways. And never would I have thought it would have performed so well. The sheer amount of consoles they ended up selling, passing 100 million units. It makes it kind of all the headlines kind of comical at the beginning of the generation, where they're like, is this the last generation of consoles, the death of the PlayStation and Xbox? And it's like, look how, they did incredibly well. And just all the way through the first party exclusives, maintaining this level of quality. Uncharted 4, come on now. And where every single one a hit? No, not necessarily, but I don't think anybody has 100% batting average. So yeah, man, I got to give them a tremendous amount of credit. They killed it. They did, and the thing is, a lot of the negative parts of the PlayStation were kind of their own choice. It's not something that I felt like that. It's stuff that I felt like could have been probably easily avoided. Which, yeah, is the backwards compatibility angle. I don't know why they took that approach to the PlayStation 4. I understand with the PlayStation 3, obviously that has cell architecture issues. Why they didn't have more PlayStation 1 games available when they spent all this time making a virtual console on PS3, I don't know. Why they had the weird approach to PS2 where they had a couple games, but there was a whole bunch of first party PS2 games that they easily could have put on there that they didn't. I don't know. I don't know why they did that. Mm-hmm. But you got to give them credit. Hey, for people who kind of completely ignored their back catalog, they sold pretty well. And I'll give them credit there. So yeah, the PS4 I have a tremendous amount of love for, and this is going to be a generation that I look back on very, very positively and fondly. I don't know how they pulled it off, to be honest. They ended up, and for people, this is a lot of insider baseball. They got rid of a lot of their first party teams during the PS4 generation that completely either they disbanded or evaporated from the mainstream consciousness. Certain teams that I would have never guessed popping off, like the like Sony Bend, for example. Like, I mean, they pulled off some really impressive stuff. So yeah, man, I'm very, very positive about the PS4, and I'm gonna look fondly upon it. I'm curious to see what they do with the PS5.
Yeah, I mean, I assume, again, it's hard to assume and expect things, but they're gonna continue this aspect where their first parties are gonna be very strong. Their first parties are very talented. Their first parties are a powerhouse to be dealt with. And though they did, shutter a lot of other, companies, and some of that stuff even seems to be their fault when they forced them to make Vita games and they forced them to make PSVR games, and unfortunately some of these companies, disbanded and were closed down, but others did rise, like you were saying, Sony Bend, who was just a PSP game and Vita games, and now they released Days Gone, which was sold way more than I think people expected, was received better than most people expected, but now Sony has another team there, and other teams have stumbled. We do have Media Molecule in this really, really weird space where I don't know.
R.I.P. Dreams.
Yeah,
what's going on with you guys?
What are they doing there? Like, it's time for Media Molecule to make a game. But so it was such a weird situation to see Sony come back so strong, to see some of these titles come back so strong, because in a world that Sony failed this time and some of these companies went away. In a world where, like, let's say it was reversed, Microsoft would pay hand over fist for the talent over there at Naughty Dog. To get Neil Druckmann and a lot of those tech guys to come over to Xbox Fan would be insane. Would be an insane amount of money. But unfortunately, we live in a world where both companies are doing well, where both companies really got to flourish. Now, PlayStation seems to flourish a little bit more, than what Xbox did at the beginning, but that's because of the stumbles. And it was easy for Sony to come out of the ashes from what they did with PS3, in my opinion. PS3 was a lot of failure in a lot of aspects and stuff, so it was a little bit easier for them to really recuperate, to get people to win people over and to redeem themselves.
Yeah, I mean, and by no means do I want to make the PS3 sound like it's the Wii U situation. Obviously, that was a very unique circumstance. And hey, the PlayStation moved like 80 million units, so it was by no means a failure. But I mean, I was really disenchanted with gaming at that point. I'm like, it was one of the unique moments where hey, let's bring ourselves back to like 2012. We had the Wii U, the Xbox 360, and the PS3, and none of those three I felt like really, really happy with. I was never that desperate to jump into another generation than then, where I'm like, please give me new hardware. Something that doesn't frickin' die from adhesive melting because the fan distribution's not working right.
Yeah, that's true.
Or something that, in the Wii U, don't even get me started on that. But yeah, it was just a weird position to be in. And so coming with the PS4, and I saw it for the first time. You were the first person to have it, and I saw it. And for the first time, I was like, holy crap, like this is something different. And and then finally, I'm looking at the hardware, and at the time, it didn't sound like a jet engine. Obviously, now we're in a different position where that thing's about to explode.
Oh, yeah, Avengers puts the stress on my system.
Yeah, but at the time, playing Killzone Liberation, I'm seeing frame rates I've never seen on console before. The resolution ridiculously high. I'm hearing all these different things that are in the development. GTA 5 just got ported over, and that was running clean. And I'm like, oh right, like I think we're back. Well, at least for PlayStation, I think we're back. And then obviously, eventually, Microsoft were able to get it together too. And fast forward to now, I'm back in, loving games, ready for the PS5, ready for the Xbox Series X, and I'm glad that in many ways the PS4 again saved my interest in gaming, and there's not that many consoles that I think could have got that done, because again, if the PS4 wasn't a hit, who knows if I'd be doing this podcast right now, to be honest with you.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, in many ways, because I probably would have been turned off, and I'm looking at the headlines, looking at freaking Stadia, and I'm like, oh god.
Yeah, in a different world, yeah, and the PlayStation would have really dug themselves even deeper. I was never a huge Xbox guy, so I probably, and Xbox wasn't doing hot either. I had a Wii U. I didn't get it at launch because no way. I probably would just have a Switch right now, and that's insane for me to think that I would have a Switch, and that's it.
Yeah,
that's
imagine that being the number one console.
Like, that's all I gamed on was a Switch.
Yeah, set 120 hours into Pokemon. Imagine that.
Yeah, that's it. I got everything, all the shinies.
But yeah, man, another episode in the tank. This is what, episode 22.
Episode 22.
We'll be back next Monday with a brand new episode for you guys and a whole bunch of new topics. And hopefully by that point we'll have the PlayStation 5 pricing point for God's sake, guys.
Yes, yeah, so there is
Sony,
an event.
please.
There is an event this week. We don't know really the size, so it's the 15th. I always get the 15th to 16th because I know Apple has an event this week. Depending on the size, depending on what content they have, let's see what they have. So. It's exciting time.
Hopefully the digital version's way cheaper too.
Yeah. So we'll have to wait and see some good information, hopefully.
Yeah, all right. So till next time, this is Jabril and I'm with
Steve. Hope you guys enjoyed.
And this is the Neo Vintage Podcast. See you guys.